and solutions. With my first breath each morning and my last breath each evening. And so for a long time I was wondering if I should be somewhere else. But now I know where I'm supposed to be. And where I'm supposed to be is at the book launch of Dr. Richard Munang and Kelly Inspiration, so that I can get inspiration from the wisdom of the African proverbs and the making of Africa work through the power of innovative volunteerism. All protocols observed. I'm Joshua Chama, a poet and an author.
His love for the youth surpasses everything else he does. And actually, that's what his book revolves around. He works with the youth, he loves the youth, he empowers the youth, he does everything with the youth. I think he's young at heart. He's living his younger life with us now. He's a daktari by profession. He does this for a living. It's been to 1,001 countries. We are one of them, but this is now his second home. Launching his book for the first time in Nairobi. Please help me welcome on stage Daktari Richard.
Let's embrace innovative volunteerism. Through you, we find a way.
Karibu sana.
We see the pathway to a greener, kinder future, to a brighter, better day. The master of the land.
Thank you very much, Captain Otoyo, for that amazing introduction.
Asante, Dr. Munang.
And thanks to everyone who is present here today. I think I'll stand on the already existing established protocols. But let me just acknowledge what we've already heard from my brother Robert Borale, his message of being inside a hole and people looking at you and everybody leaving a note, but at the end of the day, somebody jumps down and the two of you remain there. To Obina, your message, everybody has his time. Yes, indeed, everybody has his time. To Oeya, your inspiration is not just important, but it is timely. To Professor, thank you for your wisdom. To Naomi, you are an inspiration not only to the girl child, but to the young boys that are growing up across the entire African continent, and you are showing that tenacity can be developed and tenacity can be able to bring endurance. And to my friend Kelly, Mr. Odungo, your father, not you, let me just use this opportunity to say that you should be proud of your son. His humility and his dedication is not just an example. I met him online and I told him I would like to meet you. And when he showed up, I saw what millions of youth across the continent sometimes have, but we don't know. And so today, I want to say you should be proud of your son, and I want to say, Kelly, you are an inspiration and you are an epitome of gentility to millions of youth across the continent. So congratulations. To everyone present here today, please, as I said, let me stand on the existing protocols and everyone who has been invited here. I once overheard a conversation between African friends. And the subject of the discussion was what I perceive as blatant contempt and discrimination that Africans face across the entire world. They talked of how the world conscience sometimes seem indifferent to the plight of African migrants losing their lives in the Mediterranean Sea as they search for elusive greener pastures. Just this year, January to June, 2,000 Africans died as they struggled to cross the Mediterranean Sea. Even though I wasn't part of this conversation, I was saddened. And amidst this sober narrative, a powerful question was asked. Why do Africans seek greener pastures, whereas they have the same ability to be able to build a continent that is fit for purpose and can be able to provide to every citizen? The answer to this question didn't come at the end, but the answer to this question is summed up in 2 words. It is summed up in great wisdom. Great wisdom is what Africa needs today. And it is often hidden in the sayings and the proverbs of Africa. So today, my good friend Kelly is launching his magnificent book called Wisdom from African Proverbs that will bring that wisdom closer to each and every one of us. Please give him a round of applause as we support him. Thank you very much. When you read Kelly's book, what you're going to notice is that it is not only laden with proverbs, but the meaning of those proverbs are an inspiration to each and every one of us to see that we can offer something, that each and every one of us is unique. That we may think sometimes that we don't have what it takes to be able to make a difference, but we have what it takes to be able to move the needle forward. And the collective effort of each and every one of us can make a difference in our continent. But sometimes we get focused on what doesn't work, ignoring what we could have focused on, because most of the time what happens in the continent is that what doesn't work is what is attractive to be discussed, but what works is what is ignored. And as Mr. Robert Burale said, negative narratives drains. There is profound power in a narrative. What shapes societies is narrative. Narratives shape perspectives. Narratives can empower as well as they can be able to drain and depreciate a community and society. And therefore what we consume is important. And therefore these proverbs in this book by Kelly, I encounter one of my favorite African proverbs there, which goes thus: that only a wise person can solve a difficult problem. And its implication today is that if we want to see Africa succeed, if we want to see Africa move forward, there is one critical virtue that we need, and that is wisdom. And that wisdom is very, very important, especially at this time when the continent of Africa today, from the coastlines of West Africa to the rainforests of the equatorial and Central African region, to the Sahara Desert and down to the Kalahari Desert of the Southern African region, and to the Matoke Hills in the eastern part of Africa, the language is same: difficulty, adversity, food insecurity, with our brothers and sisters going to bed hungry. The language is the same, where many of our brothers and sisters are choking from indoor pollution each and every day. 700,000 Africans are not just a statistic. They are our brothers and sisters. They are our mothers, they are our fathers, and we cannot be able to discuss challenges as if they are just challenges. These are lives being lost. These are creative minds being lost in the continent today. It's a continent where unemployment has become a footnote instead of a head note, where it is discussed sometimes for self-aggrandizement rather than finding the real solutions that can be able to put our youth into the job market, where sometimes we talk about issues as if those issues don't matter, as if someone else should come and solve them. That's a fallacy, and that's a false narrative. This adversity, ladies and gentlemen, this adversity is written everywhere in the face of Africa, from north to south, east to west. But unfortunately, as we're speaking today, when you look across the entire world, 49 of the least developed countries in the world have 33 of them in Africa. That tells you something. Africa cannot discuss issues like everyone else in the world. We are at the bottom. And when you are at the bottom, you cannot speak the same way others speak when they're already at the top. And that calls us to action, to see things differently, to discuss issues differently, to know that our problems are not what will solve our issues, because problems don't solve problems. Solutions do. And solutions themselves don't come through talk, they come through action. And action is even sweeter. But as we're speaking today, we see in the news challenges. We see drought and floods. Climate change manifesting in the form of drought, floods, potential for accelerated socio-economic growth across the entire world. Africa produces raw materials that actually underpin the most lucrative industries across the entire world. When you talk of the chocolate industry, cocoa is not produced anywhere in the world, it is produced in this continent. When you talk of the smartphone industry that is worth 450 billion a year, the minerals come from this continent. When you talk of aircraft manufacture industry, the minerals come from this continent. But at the same time, it means that Africa produces, and actually we should be able to be proud of Africa. We owe Africa a great gratitude. But as we advance, there is a different discussion now. What is called low emissions development, electric mobility, solar power, all the minerals that will be able to make the electric chips, to be able to make the batteries, among others, is projected to increase by 500%, and those minerals will come from this continent. So the question is simple. Where is Africa in all this? Where is Africa in all this, and why is Africa not tapping into these opportunities? 60 years after independence, a continent has made progress. But there comes a moment in which that progress cannot be used just as where we're supposed to be. It's supposed to be used as a springboard. And a continent cannot be able to move forward when what we call sovereign capital, her people are not at the center of development. And this has been the missing link that is costing Africa all these opportunities, because people have not been put at the center of development. And these people are our young people. You can only do with what you have. Africa have her youth. Her youth are her sovereign capital. It is not the minerals underneath the continent, because the minerals are not working for the continent. It is her youth that when we inspire them, when we guide them, when we motivate them, when we show them how to do it and inspire them to do it, Africa will transform. That responsibility lies on our shoulders, because each and every individual do have skills, and these skills are worth 15 times more than natural capital and 4 times more than produced capital. But do you know what? For the past 60 years, the story about Africa has been about her landscapes, not about her people. For the past 60 years, the story about Africa has been about her cocoa, not about her people. For the past 60 years, the story of the continent has been about her tea, her coffee. It's been about wildlife, the glitter of her gold. And that means that the people, the young people, have not been put at the center of discussion in the continent. It means creativity, talent, resilience, the aptitudes, the passion of African people have not become the center stage that needs to be discussed in driving transformational development. That has been the missing link. And that is what we need to correct. The quality of an African person, and I say this without any fear of contradiction, the quality of an African person remains undefined to date. It's not been defined through the lens of passion. It's not been defined through the lens of resilience. It's been defined through the lens of poverty. But let me tell you, poverty is not only the lack of resources. Poverty is a defeated man's mindset, because Africa is too rich to be poor. You cannot be funding the entire world at the same time beg. You can't become a begging bull. And I think the young people of the continent are blessed, not only because they are Africans, they are blessed because of the times in which we are living in today. The opportunities to communicate ideas and engage people beyond your country, even without moving to the other country. The ability to be able to learn from others and cross-hybridize ideas to solve common problems using common solutions is an opportunity that we must be able to take it forward. As a current generation, we must therefore turn the page and ensure that we get it right, because let's face it, Emani played an amazing music here today. And I love music. I love to shake a leg. And I do shake a leg challenge. But one thing that you quickly learn as you listen to the music here today is that when the rhythm of the drum beat changes, so does the dance. When the rhythm of the drum beat changes, the dance steps must change and they must adapt. If not, you'll be going left while others are going right. And this is very, very important because one of the things that you learn when you are dancing, as I've said, is that you quickly understand that the steps must go with the drum beats so that at least the synchrony can actually flow and you can enjoy the music. Africa's music has changed and the dance steps must change. The narrative must change to match the reality of the times. The narrative of complaining and blame game must change to communicate solutions. We must be able to stand and say, yes, adversity is not a problem. We are products of adversity. There is absolutely nowhere in the world where people has ever triumphed not passing through adversity. We must embrace adversity, celebrate it, but understand that we must learn lessons out of that adversity. Africa's adversity have taught us lessons enough to understand that we cannot say the same thing we said 60 years ago, expecting to transform a continent that needs new solutions today. The music has changed, the dance steps must change. And that is the essence of my book, Making Africa Work Through the Power of Innovative Volunteerism. The core message is that of solutions, not complaining and blame game. That of leveraging our strength, not leveraging our weaknesses. Because weaknesses do not take us forward, they take us backward. But strength, collective strength, move us forward. Because together, we can make a difference. Umoja ni nguvu. It underlines the need for us, wherever we come from, we must rise above nationality alone. We are sons and daughters of Africa, proud and should carry that badge everywhere we go. Our uniqueness is telling. Our ability to be able to resist not only adversity but triumph through it should become our story. We should not shy away from telling what has built us and made us, and instead talk about what has broken us. You cannot grow when you focus on what breaks you. You grow when you focus on what lifts you. That's what we need in the continent today. And there comes a time when rising up to take the center stage takes people to think out of the box. Because we must understand that each and every one of us here, as the earlier speakers mentioned, and Obina said this, and Robert said this, we are all uniquely made. And I think this is really something that keeps missing in the discussions around solutions for Africa's transformation. That no single individual is the same. That regardless of the background you come from, you are gifted with something. And that something is missing somewhere to make the full equation. That something is missing somewhere to complete the process of a solution. And that when we ignore anybody, regardless of where he or she comes from, we are actually retrogressing our development, because each and every one of us matters. And that unique purpose must be nurtured. And each and every one of us must discover that purpose. But the news is, the route to discovering that purpose is one that is infested with challenges and difficulties. Because ease is the biggest threat to progress. That laxity is the biggest threat to progress. But the communication around solutions and how Africa can transform comes through the lens of ease. And that is why a pathetic behavior sets in the continent. In my book, in chapter 1 and 2, I elaborated my journey growing up in the northwestern part of Cameroon, in a small village called Jinquin. I was not born into opportunity, like many across the entire African continent, and it is okay. I went to school without shoes. Yes, it is okay. Many in the continent as we speak today do that. I went to bed with my brothers and sisters without food. Yes, it is okay. But the sad news came when my mother returned back from the farm and said, we will not have food for 2 months. Why? Because of crop failure. And this meant consequences for us. It meant that we will not be able to eat before we go to school. And she said we can borrow from our neighbors, and that's something we've never done, and that was an embarrassment. But that taught us a lesson that even in adversity we can survive. And she said one thing that I will never forget. Poverty is a mindset. lack thereof doesn't mean that you are not important. And that hard work will help you get what you do. Anything new to the world. Without challenges, there will be nothing for you to solve. And without solving anything, you cannot make a name. Legacies are built, they are not given. And you build legacy by doing something. And that is what Africa's challenges tell us today. This was my journey to purpose. At that moment, I never knew that was climate change. But later on, as I studied and leveraging on volunteerism and volunteering in an NGO, getting a 1-year experience, I later on got a scholarship to study at the University of Nottingham through volunteering. My parents could not have paid the fees, but by volunteering, I earned that experience. I gained the experience, and that experience gave me a scholarship. But what I noticed in the course of studying is that millions of men and women, our brothers and sisters across the entire continent, were facing the same predicament that my mother faced in her farm. And this then came to my realization that challenges in my own village had cascaded beyond the country and across the continent and into the world. And this gave me that dedication to understand the problems and also understand the solutions. But through dedication, through passion, through determination and resilience, I was able to understand this, and I carry the inherent abilities of what I learned growing up in the village of Jinkwin in Kom. The attitude of humility and dedication, the endurance to be able to listen and learn from your elders, the ability to be humble even in the midst of whatever titles you carry, to be down to earth, because titles are not the true character of an individual. Your character is about what you do for others, because that's what you'll be remembered for. And in the spirit of this, I carry the badge of the values I learned from my community everywhere I go with pride and dignity. Without shying away from this, even in extreme drought, as we heard, the lion does not succumb to eat grass because that's against its nature. I open chapter 5 and transition to chapter 6 with this, and I use this proverb as captured in Kelly's book to elaborate on a resilient mindset we all must cultivate to be able to turn Africa's challenges into opportunities. And the logic is simple, that even if we have talents, even if we have our purpose, it is not going to be easy for us to just get up in the morning and turn challenges to opportunities. We will endure pain, short-term pain for long-term gain, because the pain of today is the power of tomorrow. That the pain of today gives you the power to be able to hone your skills and talents to turn challenges to opportunities. And in chapter 5, I elaborated on how Africa's core challenges are disguised opportunities to accelerate socio-economic transformation. And articulated how in 1970, the continent exhibited manufacturing at a very higher rate, and today it's at 10%. That means Africa is retrogressing. And that's the question that we must be able to answer today. In chapter 7, the core of innovative volunteerism, I open it with cross a river in a crowd and the crocodiles won't eat you. And this proverb encapsulates the essence of innovative volunteerism, the ability for each and every one of us to bring our talents together, to see opportunities in challenges, to understand that it is selflessness that we need in our communities, not selfishness, to understand that it is unity of purpose, it is hopefulness, not hopelessness, that we instill in others, that it is that collectivism to do things, not individualism. And that leveraging these tenets of innovative volunteerism, leveraging on our passion, dedication, endurance, we can be able to move forward. And this is what we need today. But as you get out there were men and women just like us today who stepped out with nothing. They were armed with nothing. They had no money. They had no world in whatever form. But when these men and women step out, they face hatred and jealousy. The only thing they had at the time was their vision, and that vision was unborrowed. And the first step they took, they faced opposition. But these men and women, these scientists, these artists, they kept going. They were told that anesthesia was sinful, that to put the aeroplane in place was impossible. But these men and women were called names in society, but they never gave up. They endured and they were dedicated. And at the end of the day, we had the technologies that we have today. But they decided not to be carried away by the crowd, because the applause in the crowd may not mean that much, because it may be absent tomorrow and it may depreciate your passion. But it is a passion in your performance that matters. The passion in your performance, the ability to get up in the morning and say, I will do it. That will do what is right, not necessarily what I will get applause for. That will stand and speak truth because it is the right thing to do. That will inspire young people to stand today and know that the fact that they face challenges, they cannot be able to fend under those challenges because they are disguised opportunities. As Nelson Mandela would say, we must use time wisely and forever realize that the time is always right to do right. Yes, the time is always right to do right, and the time for Africa to do right is now, not tomorrow. It is today. And that is why we are here. The urgency to solve Africa's developmental challenges have reached fever pitch. And it is now to do the right thing, because it's never too late. In chapter 8 of this book, I open it up by talking about the youth, the sovereign capital of the continent. It is the young trees that makes up the forest. Africa's youth are Africa's strength. Africa's youth are Africa's sovereign capital. Ignore them and don't talk about development anymore. Talk about development through them. Because without them, you cannot have a continent of 1.4 billion people, and 60% of them are young people, and you ignore them and discuss aspects without actually having them be at the driver's seat. It is incomprehensible sometimes. This very move is what we must be able to carry. Because from west to east, Central and Southern and North Africa, we must be ideologically joined together. Because our founding fathers proved this. They showed in the early 60s that they can't be able to self-appoint themselves. And I've said this, nobody will appoint you to anything. Self-appoint yourself and become a solution provider today. You don't need to wait for people to give you appointments. Appoint yourself. Become a solution provider. Because in 1960, our founding fathers self-appointed themselves when they were fighting for self-determined role. And what they did was that they expounded boldness, unshakable unity. They showed dedication, selflessness, and fidelity to a cause without blinking. They never wait for a minute to say we didn't have enough resources to start. They never wait and said that language barrier was a problem. We had people from West, Central, Eastern, Northern, Southern Africa fighting to liberate a continent. That spirit of endurance, that fidelity to a cause to liberate the people, that was their purpose. And that was their unborrowed vision, a calling they had to execute. Their very move was governed by a laser-sharp focus, a clarity of vision to win independence for their people. And they did this ideologically joined by timeless values and characters. And what they did was selflessly standing for Africa's cause, not only for the individual cause, but to liberate a continent at that time. They did not postpone this. They did not say we've not been funded. They did not say, no, I did not come from a rich family. They did not say, no, Serekali's idea. They took the baton and they went ahead. That spirit, today ours is a different struggle. And our struggle is that of putting food on the table and more money in more pockets, what we call socio-economic struggle. It is about us building an economic paradise where no one ever experiences the fear of want or need. And it starts with each and every one of us embracing wisdom to reflect deeply and using what is accessible to us, not what we don't have. I've never understood this. We talk about what we don't have, but we don't talk about what we have. How on earth can you be able to build forward when you ignore your foundation and want to start a house in the middle? How will that house ever withstand turbulence, windy weather? It will collapse. Without you understanding what you have, your talent, your gifts, and perfecting them to leverage them anywhere you are with pride and honor, you cannot be able to drive transformational development even for yourself. What I've learned in my entire life till date is that what is popular sometimes, always don't last. But what is not popular, as you heard today, Obina, to Oweya, to Naomi, to Robert, your past is not a determinant for your future. Your challenges of today are not a determinant of your tomorrow, but they help build the resilience that you need, because excellence is born out of adversity. Excellence is born out of you developing that resilience to be able to withstand regardless of the difficulties. And because of this, I'll leave you with 5 points that I think that could be able to shape not only your thinking as you read Kelly's book and read my book, but to rejuvenate your ability to be able to see things differently starting today. And one thing you must always remember is that if you tell a hungry child that you gave him or her food yesterday, that means nothing to that child. That child is hungry now. That means that fundamentals are non-negotiable. It means that if you don't do anything today that can help put money in your pocket and food on the table of many, that means nothing to anybody who you talk to. You must be able to make them see themselves of what they can do to be able to put food on the table and more money in more pockets. Fundamentals are non-negotiable. That takes me to the second point, which has been buttressed a lot today. I call passion the new currency of now. Let me tell you this. Without passion, everything you do is short-lived. Passion is the fuel, the flame that gets you up even when nobody believes in you. It is that which you will get up in the morning even if you don't have 1 shilling in your pocket, but believing that I will do it because it's worth it. Passion is the new currency of now. Through money, $3 trillion on a person without passion, he squanders that money, and the next week he will have nothing. But give a passionate person ideas. He turns those ideas to solutions and become a billionaire. It's as simple as that. Become passionate and develop purposeful passion. That takes me to the third point. You must retool your skill. Being talented is good, but you must put effort to transform that talent into a skill. Because your biggest premium today is your skill, your ability to understand yourself, perfect yourself, and know that you can be able to stand anywhere and articulate your issues and do something without fear because you have honed your skills. Your skills will bring you money. Your skill will take you to places. Never ever underestimate that. But it takes passion to be able to do that. And that takes me to the fourth point, which is an aspect that I haven't heard across the continent. And it's a very dangerous pathway that I see being created. That despite the fact that with all the degrees and with a PhD, it doesn't necessarily matter. It might not keep you or open the doors in places in which you are supposed to enter. It's your commitment. Without commitment, you will lose it. It is you are in taking initiative, getting up and saying, sir, madam, can I do this, even without being asked? Because the attitude of thinking that we must only be asked before we can do, we are losing opportunities. When you meet people, don't tell them how poor you are. Tell them what you can bring to the table. Automatically, you'll be embraced. Do not use what you don't have or what is making you where you are to sell yourself. That is already a no. They will see you as a toxic asset. But when you see somebody, you said, I am good at singing, I can come and perform at your event. You've already won over that person and you've sold yourself and you've marketed yourself without knowing. Never ever communicate problems, communicate solutions. And we must develop the attitude of understanding that no single person who stands up there and talk is brought up and spoon-feeded. Yes, there are people who are lucky, but I can tell you the most luckiest people who have been spoon-feeded are not up to 2% in the entire continent. People reach where they are and survive where they are because they've built gravitas, because they've endured adversity, they've developed skills, they understand, and even if they fall down, they get up. And that is the spirit that we need to cultivate today. These qualities that I've given you will set you apart in the world overflowing with skills and experience. They are the tools you need to survive and strive and lead the way in the continent and even the world. They shape us into beacons of inspiration. They act as guiding principles for ourselves and others, and they will help you navigate through the storms of life because you will face it. And that takes me now to the last but not the least point. Our upbringing, and I believe this is across the entire African continent, disempowered us to an extent. Our parents didn't do it because they hated us, they did it out of love. They never allowed us to have conversations with them. They never allowed us to ideate out of love and out of respect because they were instilling in us respect. But that helped us in one way, but also made us to lose out on so many things. The ability to be able to co-create and ideate with your colleagues and with your friends and even with your family members without necessarily getting into an argument. But I've got news for you today. We were not taught how to fail. We were only looked how to succeed, but not allowing us to fail, because you cannot succeed when you have not failed. And so my point is, never ever fear failure, because failure is the stepping stone to success. And therefore, if you don't fail, then it means that you're not doing right, because it is only through failure that you then step up. Setbacks, you come back. Setbacks, you come back. And through the process, you are learning and having experience. And with that experience, you can be able to move forward. So failure is not something we should fear. And remember that your path will not always be smooth. Remember that you are going to face challenges. And failure will help you to change the route you are going. It will help you to change the stop sign. It will help you to ensure that at least you change tactic and approaches. And you are going to face embarrassment even from your own family members. If you haven't faced it, be prepared. You are going to lose friends. That's okay. It's not a problem. Growth comes with such. But my message to you today is that always remember that every downfall is a valuable lesson to shape you to a better person. But our society never ever appreciated the fact that we need to fail before we can succeed. And the reason I am talking about this today is that never be afraid to try something you don't know, because in doing you will learn, and by learning you will grow. By growing you will progress, and by progressing we will transform the African continent. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we therefore must have faith. Faith is a belief in things not seen, the ability that I will try today and act, because it's only through acting that we can have hope for a better tomorrow. That our abilities to do that which we don't know, that even when we are told we cannot, we defy the odds that we will. And regardless of failing, we will rise up again as a collective people. That's the spirit of innovative volunteerism. Our coming together, our understanding that we can leverage what we do and use hope to fuel not only more results, but to move us forward. Because the miracles we yearn for are in us. We are the miracles. The ability for each and every one of us to sleep and get up means that we are the miracles we yearn for, not elsewhere but within us. And our shared history, our shared ability and potential should never be used as a competition to bring each and every African down. We should use it as a tool for cooperation. We must be able to cooperate, to turn challenges to opportunities, because we must remember, a single bracelet does not jingle. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the journey to transformation is not going to be easy. It is not a straight line. But the joy of reaching our destination will overshadow the trials as we convert Africa's challenges into opportunities. But we need unity as our strength. We need kindness and passion as our currency. We need hard work, and we need boldness in our hands towards a vibrant, prosperous Africa, because what we can do today, we will transform Africa, understanding that even the biggest cock that crews today was once an egg. Thank you.
I wanna be rich. I wanna be famous.
Repeat that last one. Repeat that last one.
That even the biggest cock that crews today was once an egg.
We have to think that how do you say in Kiswahili our unity is our strength.
Umoja ni nguvu.
Yes.
Umoja ni nguvu. Right? Is that correct?
That's what you got right. Yeah.
From February, we all marched to March. In April, Dr. Richard Munang and Kelly Inspiration, they were real with their dreams. In May, they buried all their babies. In June, we had to dance into their tunes. In July, we truly had trust in them. And here we are, standing straight, walking tall, and facing forward. And here I am, standing boldly on the stage, surrounded by the wisdom from the African proverbs on my left, and the making of Africa work through the power of innovative volunteerism on my right, with Dr. Richard Munang and Kelly Inspiration sitting on the throne with all the power our continent Africa has been craving for. 1, 2, mic testing. Na mimi ni fan wa Sonko, so every time utanipata tu behind the mic. Hey Dr. Richard Munang, hey Kelly Inspiration, hey everyone. This book lounge is like a tree that catches fire, and it is spreads to the rest of the vegetation until the whole forest is engulfed with illuminating flames that will leave Africa so bright. And so this is one of the greatest change in humanity, because we are going to pass it to the next generation. We are going to pass it to everybody.